Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Xavier Rodrigues with Triance, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Subodh Kumar, Chief Data Officer at World Vision International. Subodh leads World Vision's digital transformation efforts around data. He is responsible for developing a shared vision and strategic leadership for data-driven business transformation and creating value for ministry. He authored a theological series on gazing upon the face of God through data and has also integrated biblical hermeneutics to narrative science. It's very nice to speak with you, Subodh.
Thank you very much, Xavier, and thanks for inviting me for this conversation. I'm indeed honored.
We are honored to have you. And as you rightly said in one of our earlier discussions, I think you're going to set the stage or the first of CDOs on a humanitarian organization. So, we are so honored to have you through this interview series. And thanks again for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's talk about data literacy. As CDO, you champion developing World Vision's organizational capability to govern the production and management of data. Would you say the ability to understand data in context can be very difficult to communicate across an organization? What specific challenges have you encountered at World Vision in communicating data literacy across the organization?
Thank you, Xavier. When it comes to data is not something that excites or motivates staff on a day-to-day basis. It is not one of their first priority. In fact, they look at more as a burden because it's always about reporting, accountability, that sort of thing. And one of the key challenge, I think, what I'm facing on a day-to-day basis as we work on data literacy is unclarity around why we are collecting data. How are we making sense of this data? And we'll use it for day-to-day decision making. Because so far, they've looked at data as something they need just for reporting purposes and nothing beyond it. And that is why, they don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. Now, coming to World Vision or the other organization that I work in a humanitarian context, most of our staff, they are more concerned about helping the poor, making difference in the lives of the poor, but they do not understand the relationship of what they do and how they can use data to basically, leverage on what they are doing. So it doesn't become priority for them, but that does not mean that, data doesn't mean anything for them. But of course, accountability and for reporting, but that's all where it stands. That's the biggest challenge.
No, totally. I think accountability is so important. And you bring over 25 years of experience evangelizing and communicating data vision as a critical part of growth strategy. Could you tell us what techniques have worked best for you when overcoming change management hurdles?
Xavier, I started my work as a grassroots staff. My first, way back in '94 when I joined World Vision, it was about, doing interviews with the street children. And so I picked up my experience from the grassroots as I made up to this position. So one of the principles that I have always learned and followed is that data must first make sense to the one who is collecting it. If it doesn't make sense to the person who is collecting, then the data is meaningless and it should not be collected. Even when I used to do evaluations at the community level, before presenting my finding to the staff or to the project team, I will first present it to the community from whom the data was collected. And they are the ones who need to agree or disagree with the findings. And I think it's the same thing is the data should be first presented to the ones who have collected it and add meaning to what they are doing. So the key is to present the data back to the staff who acquired it. Share the findings, share the results, allow them to internalize it and make sense of it. And then only when they understand, and then they will start to value the data, and then it will enhance the quality of the data as well. So what we did was we started this called all staff meeting. So about 4,000, 5,000 staff will join across the globe and will present the board report back to them, because the data that they have acquired, it's not only for the board, it should make sense to them. So we presented the balance scorecard back to the staff. They were free to ask questions. And when they start seeing how their work contribute to the organization's broader vision and what goes to the board, that triggered that motivation and excitement. And that's, I think, the critical element that as we overcome the change management hurdles, of course, dealing with culture and mindset is definitely one. It is tough, but it is also critical. And I think it is a challenge. We can address that challenge by basically connecting the data acquisition and the staff who are acquiring it so that it can make sense to them.
No, absolutely, Subodh. And I think in terms of making the data relevant to who's consuming it, I think is so important. And let's talk about your time at the Food for the Hungry. While at the NPO, you worked in collaboration with business units, enterprise systems, and the strategy team to envision and create an organization-wide data strategy. During this time, did you create formal change programs to establish the need for data literacy, or did you take more of an organic approach?
Actually, to be very true, a mixed approach. So I started with several training programs over the years to take staff incrementally build that data literacy skills, starting from very basics, about what is variables, what is data, mean, median, mode, very basics, and then build the advanced skilled as I felt they are ready to move to the next stages. We also enrolled staff in some formal online classes. And what I felt the most popular among my strategies around building data literacy was what I call Coffee with Subodh. That was an informal time, and staff will show up from all over the world, and ask questions, understand data. It's not in a formal context. They will ask how to interpret the data, make meaning, how they can use it and adapt it and improve it. So, you can't just depend on one particular program, but I believe that on the job, hands-on training, coaching, that works better when it's come to building data literacy skills. There are a lot of courses out there that teaches you how to analyze data, but I have not found any single course that teaches practical applications, how to make sense, interpret the data, and apply it to your day-to-day context. That only comes from the experiential learning. And I think that's the most important piece, experiential learning as we build data literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think experiential learning as well as the hands-on experience, nothing, obviously replaces that. So it's good to see that, these are the things constantly, and especially with your experience being brought within the organization as well, and successful organizational change requires strong leadership and stakeholder buy-in, no matter the desired outcome. So one such requirement of gaining full stakeholder buy-in involves improving data literacy across the organization. How do you create the right leadership coalition and sense of urgency to facilitate the need of change?
To facilitate the urgency and the need for change, we have to start, no doubt about with the C-suite executives. And I had to find an advocate champion at that level. But when I started my journey with data for several years, I could not find anybody at the top leadership level to support me. They won't stop me, but they will also not, make it as one of their priority, because none of them had an understanding of data that I was talking about. Only, when I was with Food for the Hungry, when our CEO changed just before COVID, he was the one who understood data. And so then I find more acceptance. But when I moved to World Vision, I was fortunate to find not one, not two, not three, but four C-level executives who showed interest and willingness to work with me in this endeavor. So they became my advocates, champions within their own teams. So they created that interest, down the line, and I started getting more and more areas for collaborations, offers for collaboration, willingness to participate in this journey, bridging those silos between finance program, finance marketing, all that started coming out because we had those four top-level C executives who were basically creating that momentum and that motivation across the organization.
No, that's great. I mean, that's absolutely great to have those top-level C-level executives supporting most of these on your end. And as MIT Sloan senior lecturer Myro Kazakov puts it, in a world of more data, the companies with more data literate people are the ones that are going to win. I think we can both agree that creating a data literacy culture first requires winning hearts and minds to change behavior. What are the key points of benefit that you communicate to achieve this outcome?
Savio, I call ourselves activists. We work in a humanitarian organization, so action is more important for us. Every time busy doing things, and so when it comes to data, our focus is more on what, and not so much on why. I call it the missing why, and we can approach this missing why from two perspectives. One, relating it back to our purpose. As you know, World Vision is a faith-based organization. And I think the most critical piece that changes the hearts and minds is to relate data with our faith. That's why I talked to you in the beginning, you spoke about me writing this series on gazing upon the face of God and, integrating biblical hermeneutics with narrative science. This is where I'm connecting, this missing why to our faith, how evidence and data is strengthening our faith, our purpose, our vocational calling. That is why, that is what motivates me to write on that particular topic. And the second thing is the business context of why, why we are collecting data, what decision are we going to make with this data, how are we going to use this data, how can you connect this data to the change in people's life, that staff are working more like an activist, action-oriented, but they don't see the change. So the data helps them to see the change. No matter how good our data is, unless it shows how each staff is contributing to making difference in the lives of the poor and the most vulnerable, data will not matter to them. So once our staff gets connected to this why, they see the outcomes, the result of their work, and that motivates them. In humanitarian industry, most of our staff, almost like I would say 100% of our staff, they join the organizations because of their spiritual call to serve the poor. And once we start showing convincingly through our data, then our data start making sense to them. I just remember, wasn't it Florence Nightingale who said that if you want to understand God, you better study statistics.
Absolutely, I think that's so relevant and so key. But thanks for sharing all those insights. Subodh, from your side, I've been speaking with Dr. Subodh Kumar, Chief Data Officer at World Vision International. Look for part 2 of this series right here on CDO Magazine, where we'll talk about modern data and analytics platforms. Thank you, Subodh. Please visit CDO Magazine for additional interviews.